This is Eric Taylor, and you're listening to Thinking Outside the Longbox with Juan, John, and Gabe.
All right, welcome back from the break, guys. On the line, I have Erik and Leila, who are the creator or co-creator and artist of Pantheon Project, a new book from Action Lab. And we are super excited to talk to them because Leila is also the artist of Shutter, which is my number one pick for favorite comic of 2014. So,
oh, what?
Yeah, you're welcome. So we're setting a precedent right now. What I'm hoping is that next year, whatever comic I pick, we can finagle that person too. So, say we did it last year. But yeah. All right. So, real quick, let's start with the question that we start all of our interviews with. What is the superhero origin story of Pantheon Project?
Ooh, Erik, you should tackle this one.
Well, it's a long story, but I'll try and make it as short as possible. So I worked with my friend Kevin Karen. We worked together at a comic book store, Time Warp Comics in Longmont, Colorado. Now it's in Boulder, Colorado. But he and I were, as people tend to do, bored at work, just openly talking about some projects and things that we'd eventually like to do. And Kevin Karen is a published comic book artist, and he had this idea about these kids who would all of a sudden get these superpowers, and then I riffed off that idea, and we went back and forth, and we just kind of created this concept of the story. And then Kevin did what most people tend to do when he gets to our age, is start having a family. So he had to gracefully back out of doing the artwork for the project, and that would put a major dent in our already slow momentum. So he suggested a handful of Denver local artists that we could all, or that I could communicate with and try and see if they would be interested in working on this project. And, that's how I found Leila. And I emailed her way back in October of 2011 and asked if she would like to meet up and discuss potentially working together. And so we met at a bookstore downtown Denver, and then here we are today.
Nice.
Yeah, and I was really psyched about his script. I mean, no one had asked me to do a project where the script was that good before, and I was like, wow, you're a really great writer. And so I was more than happy to work on the project, because it was like the next evolution in what I wanted to draw as a comic book artist.
That's awesome. So this morning I picked him up off of Comixology. I read the first 3 issues. I haven't finished the 4th one yet. So
I don't think it's out, actually.
Comixology said it was, and I paid for it. So
because they there's a reason for that. So we have, like, in our minds, there's only 4 issues, but in Comixology's mind, there's 5, because they split issues 1 and 2.
Oh,
they split issue 1 into 2 parts.
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, issue 1 was awesome, the kind of origin story of the whole comic, and issue 2 is also really great. So I just. Yeah, first off, it's definitely a book that we'll be recommending on the show. It's phenomenally fun. But
thank you.
So I saw that the project kind of got its, momentum on Kickstarter. Tell me how that process was for you guys. Was it, enjoyable? Was it awful? Like,
I wouldn't say. Well, all right. It's not awful by any means. Not awful. And enjoyable is a word I would use sparingly for the whole process. But it's we did that after Leila and I started working on this book in October of 2011. We needed to start figuring out how we can really get it made, because we were doing things here and there, and I was paying Leila as best I could, and then I realized if we really want to get this going, and if Leila needs to make a living, of course, and I didn't want her to overcommit or feel obligated, so it was time to put money where my mouth was, and so we started Kickstarter in June 2012, asking for a parse $8,000, but it was very, very, a unique experience, and very humbling too, because you're really putting yourself out there. Especially me. My day job is, I'm a project manager for a big company, and and I work from home, so it's a little different having a video of yourself out there asking for money and trying to do it in a clever, unique way. And then throughout the Kickstarter campaign, just meeting all these interesting people reaching out saying they love the project, some people reaching out saying they did not like the project, some people very generous with their money. Anyone who donated any amount of money was generous. I mean, who are we to put their trust their money with? But it was pretty great. And when we did not reach our goal until the day it was supposed to run out.
Nice.
So
that was nerve-wracking.
It was very nerve-wracking because back then, I don't know if it's changed, but back then, if you did not reach your goal, you lose everything. So if
Kickstarter is still that way. It's like Indiegogo and stuff are the ones where you can, keep whatever you've raised. But yeah, Kickstarter is still, if you don't fund the project fully, you don't get nothing. So
yeah, so we were very, very anxious. And I remember when it was done and, I cut Leila the check to finish the book and obviously the other people who were working on it as well. And yeah, so that was that.
Nice. And then in that process, at what point did Action Lab pick it up and decide to publish it, or was that kind of after the fact? Or
I think we had 2 issues done at that point, and I had met the Action Lab guys at a couple conventions, and they seemed really interested in it. And we really didn't want to do Kickstarter again, and we really wanted to find a publisher. So at that point, we started contacting them about it, and then they were like, yeah, let's do it. And so it was actually a really long process because Action Lab's deal is that they need to have like the first story arc done before they'll print physical copies, or at least that was the case with us. So that's why it's digital first. And since it took us so long to get them the final files, it hasn't gone to physical print yet. And I think we originally intended for it to be printed in the middle of 2014, but it took us longer to finish than we thought. So that's why it's this year instead of last year, if that makes any sense.
Right. And do you guys have a release date for the physical copies, or?
We don't, because we still, or I don't know, actually, is there any more developments on that, Erik?
Well, the fourth or fifth, if you're on Comixology issue, the final issue is finished. We're just putting the finishing touches on the design, the lettering, and things like that.
Okay.
And once we hand that into Action Lab, then we're going to have a meeting about when the collection is going to be solicited. So I believe the plan is to release. The only physical thing that'll be available to retailers will be the trade paperback.
Okay.
And I believe if people want a special order the individual issues, they can do so. But we'll have individual issues available at comic book conventions and hopefully do something special with some variants and things like that.
Nice.
Because we've had at Denver Comic Con, we actually had a lot of success selling individual issues, and I think people really like the pamphlets and the traditional way. But I think from Action Lab, the trade paperback should be solicited in March and available in May. Okay. I believe May or June.
That is awesome. I cannot wait to pick that up and put it in my collection because I am a physical collector for sure. So
yay!
But wait till you see the cover design that Leila just threw at me for the trade paperback. It's quite spectacular. I can't wait to see what it looks like when it's finished.
Nice.
Thank you. I'm gonna have so much fun drawing it. So yeah, very excited.
With you, Erik. So this is your debut comic book. Has it been? I mean, how has that experience been? I mean, you've gone from never having put out a comic book and just kind of working with a buddy at a comic book shop and coming up with, a nutty idea to now you have, one of the bigger indie publishers putting out your book. How has that experience been? Has it been kind of exciting or a little nerve shattering, a little bit of both?
Well, it's been very nerve-shattering at points and very cathartic at others and very humbling. I mean, this is something I've always wanted to do. My twin brother and I, when we were kids, we'd draw our own comics, our own Avengers books, and we were always in our art classes in high school and middle school, and I was an art major for a few years in college, and I did 2 independent studies at UMass Amherst, comic book writing and comic book history. So I've always, this has always just been a default passion of mine. And when I started to, get a little older, I decided that now was the time to really go forward and see what I can do. And, I'm definitely looking forward to working on more projects, but this will always hold like a special place for me. I've learned so much, and I've met so many great people that have changed my life. There's no way I could think of my life without knowing Kevin or Leila or Russ Wooten or Kit. I mean, we've all, come together and made some pretty good friendships, and it's a result of this book. Right. There's no other way. There's no other way about it.
And for Leila, is it different working like with Action Lab than it has been working with like Image and Shutter, or is it a similar process, or is it? I mean, do the companies kind of have different ethos or like feelings? I guess I don't know because I'm not part of that publishing side of it. I'm only on the collector side. So, I mean, is it kind of different working with the different companies, or?
It's actually very different. The only similarities thus far is that it is creator owned. So getting the project done, the team together, that's all up to the creative team. And I love that part. And then there's a couple differences, and I haven't gone through the whole process with Action Lab yet, so I can't really say what from start to finish is similar and different. But Image has like offices with like a bunch of paid employees,
right? So
like things are very efficient there, and I don't know how to word this.
It's okay.
And then things at Image are like run in a way that people can get things done at a really fast pace, and communication is almost flawless for at least my team. And then with Action Lab, everyone is super nice as is Image, but it's hard because these people have day jobs, and so they're really doing comics as their passion that they really are driving towards, and they want to make a living at comics. But sometimes it's difficult because, like Erik as well, we all have day jobs, and it's hard to like get stuff done and the communication to be perfect when you're trying to make a living doing something else.
Right.
I don't think I'm explaining this very well.
No,
but
it makes a ton of sense. One is, Image is that, it's a big company. It's been around for a while. They do that for their living. It's like us with our podcast. Like sometimes we have to finagle schedules around because clearly we don't do this for a living. Like we just do this on the weekend because it's awesome, So that's interesting. That's something I didn't know about Action Lab. I've picked up, some of their books. Like I really enjoyed The Plague and Zombie Tramp and stuff like that. But I had no idea that it was, when on the exterior, it looks like just any other independent comic book company, but you don't think about the fact that maybe some of those people have day jobs and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's insane because like I also know how it is to do a day job in comics at the same time, and it is rough. And so kudos to Action Lab because you guys work so hard. It's ridiculous. I don't know what else to say.
Image has been around for almost a quarter century, if you put it out there like that. And they've had a lot of lessons to learn, a lot of talent, a lot of professionals go in and out of their doors. And Action Lab they've only been around for around 4 years. And right. The amount of material, the amount of professionally produced material they're able to put out is quite spectacular. And, you definitely see the difference between a well-oiled machine and a startup. Action Lab, would be more considered the startup. So it's been really fascinating. Yeah, and I'm really excited to see where Action Lab goes from here because I think they're just going to keep growing and getting better.
Well, I mean, they put out great stuff. So, I mean, there's that. That's always a big help because Image managed to survive through the 90s when they were putting out not great stuff sometimes. So
yeah, and like considering the names that Image gets.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'm like talking horrible English today.
It's okay. It's still morning time.
Yeah, like Image started off of these big name illustrators and writers, and Action Lab didn't. And seeing their progress and success up to now, not having huge industry names behind it is also pretty incredible.
Well, it just shows that there's a lot of like talent out there that have great ideas and great artwork and stuff that just nobody knows about because even 15, 20 years ago, there wasn't something like Deviant Art. There wasn't something like, that's one of the things that's kind of a reoccurring theme on our show is these, little comic book companies and like, small time comic producers. They're able to get online and find an illustrator that matches their plot line on a website, and they might live in like Toronto and their illustrator lives in like the Philippines, but through the magic of the internet, they're able to connect with each other and meet each other and do all these awesome projects literally completely over the internet. It's an awesome time for comics, if you ask me, just because of that,
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, like today, I wanted to read the comic before I interviewed you guys, so I put it on my phone. That's not something, my local comic book shop is closed on Sundays. So even if it was in print, I wouldn't be able to go buy it, or I would have to order it and wait for it, whatever. And today I got to just put it on my phone and read the whole thing. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So because I have to ask, because Shudder was like absolutely my favorite comic book last year, how has that experience been working with Joe Keating and, Image and putting out, I mean, reviewers have loved the comic book. I mean, how has that experience been? Like, it seems kind of like it just shot to the top of my list. And I know a lot of my friends that are big time collectors, including my co-host John, like it went to the top of our list. There's books that I'll buy 5 or 6 months and just read them, 5 or 6, at a time. But Shudder is one of the books that I buy and read right away because I gotta. I mean, how has that been? Sorry, I'm gushing. My bad.
Oh, no, it's all right. That's so great. Thank you. Well, it's been absolutely amazing. I love the project so much. Like, Joe Keating writes the craziest visuals that keep me very interested artistically. And so, like, when the project first started, I was just like, oh, yeah, this is so fun to draw. Like, I love Kate and I love all these side characters, and I don't know what the fuck he means by this one panel description, but yeah, I'm into it. And so it was just super fun to draw at first. And then it was just amazing after it was in print. It really blew me away how much everyone seemed to like it. And it was crazy reading positive reviews, or it was amazing actually getting reviews on any comic I worked on in general. Because like with the Pantheon Project, since Erik and I weren't already established in the industry, like hardly anyone was reading it because one, it wasn't published by anyone who was putting it in previews. And two, just like no one knew our name and weren't really interested in looking us up. So once my name was attached to Joe Keating and to Image Comics, like I got all this attention and it was like amazing. I'm like, finally, all my hard work, if someone's noticing it. And it was very humbling and very great in general. And yeah, I could gush about it for hours probably. It's been such a great experience, and I'm really happy that it's continuing on because it's one of my dream projects for sure. Who's
in both comics, in Pantheon Project, in Shudder, which are your favorite characters to draw? Just for my own edification.
Okay. Well, with the Pantheon Project, I think I skipped around like who I loved drawing most, but I think I settled on Sophie, because she has really snide and sarcastic expressions and body movements and posing. And I won't ruin it for readers, but once you do read the comic, everyone, Sophie is my favorite to draw. Nice. And then in Shudder, it's also kind of skipped around a lot, but I think in general my favorite character was Eklund, the samurai jackal lady, which everyone thinks is a fox, which is fair because she has longer hair. But I just loved drawing her punk samurai outfit, and I liked giving her glaring expressions. Yeah, that's the answer. Okay.
Nice. With Pantheon Project, you had mentioned, Erik, that the first 5 issues are the first story arc. Do you guys have more issues in the works, or I guess first 4 issues, or however? Thanks, Comixology, for making my life confusing. Do you guys have plans for another story arc afterwards, or?
We don't have anything concrete. I think we end the whole project in a not a finite way, but there's ways it could go on into future stories. But this was really a big trial, not trial, but very. Yeah, I speak broken English today too. No, we don't have any future plans for it just yet. We're always, I'm going to be tinkering with ideas and scripts and stories and things like that. And maybe Leila, when her schedule opens up and down in the future, we can try and figure something out. But for now, this is going to be it until we have some, till I meet some other artists who can maybe fill in some gaps. But right now, I'm looking forward to working on some different projects, some superhero books or non-superhero books, which would be fun. I'm working on some really some fun story ideas for some other projects, and we'll be more than happy to come back and revisit this if and when there's a demand for it.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on how sales are for the trade, right?
Right, and if they go through the roof, let's hope, and we start to see a positive reaction, then we can circle back around and try and figure out if the next volume is something we can put together.
Nice.
There's definitely story ideas.
I hope
definitely
so.
That.
I'm loving it so far. So
Thanks.
I can't wait to sit in front of my phone and read the next issue. So speaking of future projects besides Pantheon Project, Erik, do you have anything in the works right now, or are you just kind of
not right now? My day job is keeping me pretty busy, as we've established, and
day job.
What I plan on doing this. Yeah, who needs them? Right?
Unfortunately, all of us.
So what I plan on doing this year is to attend a lot of conventions outside of Denver, of course, and to put my business card in people's hands and show them the comic and make some contacts, and more importantly, make some friends and just see if there's any crazy comics we can create.
Nice.
Leila's been great at introducing me when I just stand there, because I'm a little out of my depth. She's more of a pro at this than I am, but it'd be great to meet some people and get some projects off the ground. But right now, I'm just focusing on wrapping up Pantheon and making sure I put it in as many hands as possible.
Nice. And will you be at the Denver Comic-Con?
Yes.
Yes. That I get to say hi to you guys. We're gonna have
that'd be great.
Our podcast is gonna have a booth there this year too, in conjunction with
great.
fantastic Hall of Justice comics. Shameless.
Yeah, we
shameless
hope to
plug.
have nice. Yeah, we should have the trade paperback out by then.
Yes.
And so we're really excited for that. I'm really amazed because we've been at Denver Comic-Con for the past 3 years, I think. Is that correct? And every year we've been there, sales on our single issue Pantheon projects have been really great. And so, which is funny because I think we only had the same issue or 2 issues out for 2 Denver Comic-Cons in a row, but they were still selling pretty well. And I assumed that sales would be crappy the second year around, since everyone who came up to our table I assumed would be people who had already bought our comic. So I'm really excited to have new material for everyone this next year.
Yeah, this is the year where we'll have new goodies for everybody who comes by. No repeats of last year.
I'll scream, "Take my money," and just throw 20s at you. Okay.
Oh, all right. Let's do it.
More than welcome to do that.
Yeah. Leila, same question that I asked Erik like 10 minutes ago. What do you have any new projects in the works, or is it mostly just focusing on Shudder and stuff like that, or what else do you have going on?
Well, I'm mostly just focusing on Shudder. We had a buffer set up for ourselves when we started publishing Shudder, and I've quickly burned through that because I had some other projects I had to finish up. There's a comic called Dead Skins by Fried Comics that I drew, and I was doing some recoloring for them, and so I had that intermixed with it. I also had issues 3 and 4 of the Pantheon Project to finish up while I started Shudder. So now that my buffer with Shudder has kind of fizzled out, I need to work really hard at keeping that as a monthly without any other stuff. So that's going to be plenty of work for myself. But I do have some plans. Like I'm working on kind of like a stream of consciousness memoir that I'd like to publish eventually. And then I also have like one page of this short porn comic that I was doing for fun, and I'll probably like self-publish that later this year. Yeah, I think that's it for now. I think I might try writing like a short 6-issue run for an artist friend of mine, but I don't think I'll do that unless I have a publisher set up already for that.
Nice. So mostly Shudder and a bunch of cool little projects, it sounds like.
Little like small side projects.
I wrote a note to my cohorts that you're working on a short porn comic, and they're giggling. Oh. They're giggling maniacally to themselves right now.
Cool. Yeah, it's really lame. I always flip-flop back and forth whether or not I want to expose it to the world. I probably will end up doing it.
Maybe exposed to the world isn't the phrasing you want to use, though.
That's true.
Or is it, right? Sorry, this is that kind of podcast. Yeah. It's mostly fart jokes and idiocy, so... But
awesome.
So, in kind of wrapping up, Erik, how can people get a hold of Pantheon Project, and where can they contact you? And then, Leila, where can people find and get a hold of you?
Well, the first handful of issues for the Pantheon Project is available on Comixology. You can just go to Comixology's homepage and search for the Pantheon Project. Pantheon Project, in my comic book online hub is Facebook. So facebook.com/the Pantheon Project. And people can find me on Twitter at Erik F. Taylor, Erik with a K, F as in Frank Taylor. And I'm usually just retweeting other things I think is interesting and randomly commenting on something I'm watching, which I think is what Twitter's for. And I'll be doing a little bit more traveling this year, comic book related. I'm going to be at Emerald City Comic Con at the end of March 27th through the 29th. I don't have a table, but I'm going to have a blast walking around, and I'll have Pantheon Project in tow. I'm going to be at the FOCO Comics and Gaming Festival in Fort Collins on March 8th.
Hey, we'll
Leila, I'm sorry?
We'll be at that too.
Oh, well, I'll be happy to see you. And then Rose City Con in Portland, September 9th through the 20th, which Leila and I just discussed the other day. But yeah, you can just find me online. But Twitter and Facebook would be the best places to be finding me.
Nice.
And the best way to find me is, like, my name is associated with almost everything I have. So my name, Leila del Duca. So I have my main website with all of the links attached is leiladelduca.com, and then like leiladelduca.tumblr.com, and then my Twitter handle is Leila del Duca. The only thing that isn't really associated with my name is Devian Art, and that is Leila Sedai. For all of you Wheel of Time fans, you might catch that reference. But that's LeilaSedai.deviantart.com, and that probably has the best selection of my works that you could view. I also have a bunch of original art pages up on Cadence Comic Art with Paolo Belfiore, and there's a lot of like original scans. So if you're into looking at art that hasn't been altered on the computer and you just want to see my inks, that's also a great place to look. And there's a link to that on my website as well. And then conventions I'm going to this year. I'll be at Emerald City Comic Con with Joe Keating, and then I'll be at Denver Comic Con with Erik, and then Rose City Comic Con with Erik and Joe. And then I think Joe and I are trying to go to New York City Comic Con, but we haven't figured out the logistics on that yet, so it's not a definite. And then I think that's about it for traveling around this year. I got really burnt out last year from traveling so much for work, so I have to kind of like take it easy and stay on top of work this year.
Nice. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this interview with us. Like, I've been way too amped up all morning. So they've been making fun of how excited I've been like all week. So we really appreciate you guys coming on the show. And I mean, it's awesome. Like, it's awesome to talk to people that are putting out comic books that, you know, we absolutely love. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
It was a pleasure. Hello, everyone. This is Leila del Duca, and you're listening to Thinking Outside the Longbox with Juan, John, and Gabe, and they're really cool.
Mm-hmm. What was that?